Hello, I'm Brendan Gall, Global Chief Content Officer of Media Brands and Global President of our film development company, Traverse 32. I'm so happy to be here today to talk with the team behind the film, The Show. With me is Allison Polly, Head of Content Development and Distribution at PepsiCo. Also award-winning filmmaker, Nadia Halgren, who directed the show. One of Nadia's many accolades was being nominated for an Emmy for Netflix's film Becoming, about former First Lady Michelle Obama. We also have Caitlin McGinty, Head of Brand Storytelling at Boardwalk Pictures, and Andrew Freed, Founder and President of Boardwalk Pictures, the production company that produced the show.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I just want to start by saying I think this show is just such a special film. And I want to commend Pepsi for bringing it forward. You know, I think we've all been around, we all know it's really hard to even get this work done, but to do it with such elegance and heart is something that we really don't see a lot in the industry. My goal today for this session is really just unpack why Pepsi made the film, how it was brought to life, and get a sense from the team on the process behind it. But, you know, we're here at Brand Storytelling, so let's start with the brand. Ali, could you tell us, why did Pepsi want to make this particular film, and what were you trying to achieve with the show?
Sure. So we've been trying to do this for a few years. And by this, I mean to capture the making of, the behind the scenes for, you know, these coveted 12 or 13 minutes, depending upon who you ask. This was the year that we were able to get all the planets to align, get the right team, get the right distributor, the right artist. I think for us as a brand, you know, we have such an affiliation with the actual performance. And obviously it's an affiliation that we're very proud about and very excited by year after year. But we wanted to extend the equity, as they say in marketing, beyond those 12 minutes. So we knew that for the consumer, you're watching it, and then the next beat in culture is probably when you hear the next artist for the next year being announced. We wanted to keep ourselves part of the conversation. So the brand team did several things in terms of just extending the overall marketing, but the feature film was really about keeping us in culture. So tremendous pressure on the production company to deliver quickly, which they can speak to because they're magicians. I mean, I don't know anybody who can make a feature film in less than a year. And I think they delivered in 6 months, a fully finished, glorious, full-length feature doc.
Wow.
But that was the impetus behind it, was really to extend the conversation, keep Pepsi in the atmosphere, the cultural atmosphere for longer than when the show was actually over during the game.
Wow. I mean, it's so powerful, right? Because I mean, we're all feeling so much pressure about making the most of our investments. And the investment that Pepsi makes every year in the halftime show, you're right. I mean, Pepsi is synonymous with the halftime show at this point. So to be able to extend that equity is really, really cool.
And I should just say, you know, Rock Nation has been extraordinary as a partner. Without them, we would have no access to talent. We'd have no access to all the hundreds of people who are part of the show, regardless of the specifics. It's just they provide, you know, the access to us.
Yeah. Now, I know, like, it's always so important to bring the right creative package together around the idea, right? And I mean, that's the key to making sure that you make something really special, but also that it is something that people want to distribute and want to spend time with. It's really a key to unlocking that distribution. Can you talk about how you came to Boardwalk Pictures and Nadia and built a package that got you to this great end result?
Sure. I hear my kitten in the background. She's rolling a marble down the floor. Boardwalk, we've wanted to work with Boardwalk Pictures for years. We're a big fan of their work. Their series 7 Days Out was something that we always kind of had in our radar as these people know how to do this. And if we ever can kind of figure out a way to do it too, they were very front and center for us in terms of technique and also obviously incredible taste. Obviously Chef's Table and other things. Anybody who's watching should see their current film, Val, which I loved. But we also had to be cognizant that our distribution partner had to be comfortable with the production company. So part of this, again, is partners looking to your left, looking to your right all the time, right? So we made the decision to work with Boardwalk in conjunction with Showtime, that had a long history with them and knew their quality, knew that they would deliver, and knew that they would be best in class. We called them, I think, like the craziest. This is one great story we can get to if we have time, was, the look on their faces when we called them. We were like, hey guys, what are you doing tonight? You want to talk about a project where you have to start shooting in 3 days and deliver in an hour? And, you have to laugh because everybody basically drank the same Kool-Aid, and here we are. But they chose Nadia. Obviously, we'd seen the film, obviously thought very highly of her, but had no idea the treasure that was about to be unpacked for us. I mean, this woman earned the access to the artist. She earned the intimacy with the artist. She had no, in their production schedule, there was no time with anybody. They had to get out there during COVID, before a vaccine, her and her production team, and basically make these people feel comfortable. And we talked a lot about it, like, how do you do that? And I think, she can tell you how she does that, but there's no one else who could have made this film, because The Weeknd, also for him in his career, this is a very personal moment for him. Him and Lamar had really kind of arrived, and it was very emotional, as you could see in the film. And Nadia was the perfect director to be trusted, to be brought into that inner circle. So I give Freed and team all the credit for bringing her forward. I can just tell you from working with her, looking back, there's nobody else who could have done it.
Wow. Absolutely. I mean, that emotion, I was so struck. I had watched the film again recently. That shot at the end after the show with Lamar is just so emotional. You just feel it. It was really, really just so incredible. For Caitlin and Andrew, I know working with a brand can be really difficult, especially when you're trying to create entertainment, but it also has to advertise, or it also has to have a brand benefit. Now, Ali and Pepsi are certainly not new to this space. I think they're better than most people at this. But can you talk about what that partnership was like how they empowered you to do the great work that you needed to get this done, and how they're different than other brands that you might work with?
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let Caitlin really answer, because she probably has the smarter things to say than me on this. But I think, look, the first call that we had with Pepsi, and Ali is not over exaggerating, like, it was sort of this very last minute conversation, but what we talked about was telling the story. On that first call, the foundational sort of elements of this project, as they were being formed, we didn't have conversations about Pepsi logos and people drinking from cans or bottles of soda. We talked about the story that we were telling and how we were going to tell it. Pepsi's objectives, I think, were clear here from a marketing standpoint, which was to extend the engagement, to extend the conversation, and extend the connection with the audience. These 12 minutes are the most watched 12 minutes on the planet now, and there's really nothing that compares with it anymore, right? I mean, we used to, in the old days, as my kids like to say, olden days, which really hurts. But we all watched things at the same time. We all had these conversations at once, whether it was a big game or the Oscars or the last episode of MASH or Seinfeld or whatever those comps are. This is sort of that last thing left that everybody watches at once. And so foundationally, the conversation was pure. It was creative. It was how do we tell the story of all that goes in to creating those 12 minutes, the people, the work, the creativity, the talent, and especially in a year when we had all been home staring at our Zooms, for the better part of the year. And so the Super Bowl and that halftime show represented a real reemergence in many ways. And so for me, the next conversation was just, and this is the conversation that I have as the president of a production company, like, what is the right team and what is the right match to make here to tell this story? Nadia is someone, she and I had worked together back, again, as my kids would say in the olden days. But we worked together a lot in New York back in the day when we were just hustling. And we had a reconnection conversation in the wake of her, beautiful work with Michelle Obama, and just like, we should get into this, we should find something else to make. And the reality of this is, because it was so quick, because I called her probably right before Christmas, and what I said was, the Super Bowl's February 3rd. There is no, I think that's the right date, but we're not pushing the Super Bowl. So it is now, we're going to hit it hard. And what I hoped, and what I think what revealed itself to be true, is that Nadia, as much as her filmmaking sensibility and her storytelling sensibility had so much to do with it, it also was just a human compatibility, which is, we're going to put you in a space that we are like the interloping observers in, and who can we put in this space who will earn access, build trust, and truly collaborate with all of these creative powerhouses who are best in class. How do we introduce somebody to that who's anything less than best in class? We can't. And so we were fortunate, to have Nadia, and for her to do all the things that she did. When you look at the film and you realize that this started from a place of, we may never have access to the Weeknd through the entire filming of this. And then you realize that it's like Nadia hanging off the back of his golf cart, driving to the stadium as he's getting ready to do the show, and riding in the elevator with him and everything else. That happens in the trenches. That happens in the making of it. And so I hope I answered your question, Caitlin. Please say something else.
Yeah. And those pieces feel so intimate, the ones that you just talked about. It's that earning that trust and that access and that intimacy, I think, is such a gift to the audience. Caitlin, I'm curious, your thoughts about, where, obviously Pepsi's doing it right. And it shows in the work. A lot of brands aren't. Can you talk about your experience with brands, and how you think this relationship had the right pieces to create work that's so important as the show?
Trust is absolutely the word, and partnership is a word that gets thrown around a ton, but Pepsi truly walks the walk in terms of partnership. The idea, Freed touched on it, everybody is a ninja who is operating at the top of their field, and subject matter experts backwards and forwards and in their sleep. And we locked arms with Pepsi, and Pepsi really trusted us and trusted Nadia, obviously. And it's a feat, in COVID, where we weren't together, and we had to have a light footprint anyway with this particular film. We knew that it was going to be Nadia and just a couple people in the field with her. And Pepsi gave us the space to say, let us know what comes back. Like, we're eager to see. We trust, Nadia's instincts implicitly, because the story is unfolding. It is not something that we could ever predict. And Nadia and her small crew would show up, and there would be twists and turns, and they would learn things, and it would be like, just kidding, this isn't happening anymore, and now we have to be over here, and crazy hurdles. And Pepsi just gave us the space to say, let us know what the story needs. Let us know what the character needs. And they supported us in a way that I thought was just incredible. We would, Freed and Ali have talked about like the call that set off the whole project. And that was followed by literally like Zooming every day for hours to figure this all out. And so every day I was coming to Ali and her team with like, here's something we have to solve for. Here's something we're trying to navigate right now. And they would just let us go like, okay, and what do you guys think? And what do you need? And how do we do it best? And so I just, for me, it all came down to trust, and Pepsi just giving us that. And really, it was always a dialogue. And I think you'll hear about some other war stories that we have from this one that really exemplify that. But I think that really is what sets Pepsi apart, is the true respect for the craft and the understanding of, like, tell us what the story needs so we can make it the most meaningful to the audience.
We invented this thing called office hours, where at the same time every day we would all be on Zoom together, regardless of whatever was going on. And we would have special guests pop on, logistics would pop on, legal would pop on, clearances would pop on, or just us all talking about, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing today? What do you need? But it's something that we've never done that before. We just made it up. We just made it up together. And now I use it on every project because it gives everybody such a sense of calm. It's like, we will, you know, regardless of what's happening, all the crazies of today, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to see Fried and I'm going to ask him. And I know he's going to be, and I know Caitlin's going to be on. And, you know, it just keeps, again, it's a short window, right? The good news is it goes away after 6 weeks, right? It's not like a protracted year of it, but it's a very concentrated focus where we're super dedicated.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it gives us,
sorry, Caitlin, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, it gives us the flexibility, you know, because, you know, Pepsi is a brand that is very adaptable to understanding the creative needs. And so I would just say, like, you know, we would go, oh, this isn't working, we need something different. And Pepsi was open to that. It was not like this process-driven, rigid conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like, you know, creating that cadence of interaction every day, that's really how you build relationships, right? And relationships are how you get through the tough stuff. And creating a film like this during COVID is certainly the tough stuff.
But those relationships, I think, also are how you get through I don't want to say easy stuff, because none of it's easy, but maybe it's the foundational stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back for a moment. There is still a brand here who is paying an awful lot of money to tell this story, right? And I think as storytellers, and not everyone is like this, but I know that my present company, Nadia certainly included, like, we get that responsibility, and we want to fulfill that for our partnerships. We want to fulfill that for our partners. That's part of this, right? We don't get into a situation where the brand is insisting that we do this, that, the other. It's just that we have formed a creative collaboration with these partners over time. And so there's safe space to talk about all the things. It doesn't have to be compartmentalized as like, what is the story? What is the brand story? What are we accomplishing? What is the audience viewing? It's just, we truly made this all together and became sensitive to what success looked like for everybody involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to go to Nadia. So Nadia, I want to hear about what success for you looked like in the project as a filmmaker that is so accomplished. I mean, really, you know, being at the top of your game. I so admire your work, and it's such a gift to have you here with us today. You know, I think people immediately hear about the movie and they're like, oh, this is cool. It's a film about the Weeknd and the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show. But, you know, really, as I said, I recently rewatched it, and I don't know if it's because of where we are still with the pandemic, but it's so emotional. And, you know, it's really a movie about everyday people that are artists that are trying to bring a sense of normalcy back, which for me, it's about, you know, hope and resilience and excellence against the odds. Can you talk about what drew you to the project and how you approach the material?
Sure. So I think what we really loved about the idea that Pepsi and Boardwalk brought to us was it was just a real human story about people's dreams coming true, you know, but under some of the most challenging circumstances, I think, you know, a lot of us have dealt with in our professional lives. We knew it was going to be, we just had these great characters. We had Jesse Collins, it was his first time, you know, executive producing the Super Bowl. We had Lila Nicole, who was her first time doing wardrobe for the Super Bowl. But then we also had Abel and Lamar, who best friends growing up, with this dream and supported each other to get to the Super Bowl, to get to this dream that they never imagined could come true. And that's something that really connected with me. And I knew that if we could tell the story of all these people coming together to cooperate, to make this amazing thing happen in a very difficult time so that they could bring joy to the world. I was like, that's what we all need right now, you know, just a really uplifting story. And I'm just kind of a sucker for those things. So I knew immediately that I was going to just do my best to get in there and tell all these great stories. And also I think the story of the field cast was really special to us as well. And we knew immediately when we heard what Abel's idea was for the performance and getting all these young men to come together in this moment, we knew that that was also a story that was special to us and that we were going to have to follow. So when you hear all these things happening and all these elements coming together in terms of storytelling that connect with you, I think you just know that something great is going to happen, and you just put all your faith in that, you know.
Yeah, and the characters are incredible. My favorite was the choreographer. I thought her whole storyline was
Yes,
just
Charm. No, yeah,
my
hats off to
God.
Charm. She was amazing. Yes, the minute we met her, we were like, oh my goodness, you know.
Right.
And it's just, there was so much happening. So much was happening. Everywhere you turn, there was something amazing happening. So, you know, for us, the challenge was, where do we go next? Where do we point our camera? The field and the space in which people were working was just huge. To get from one place to the next could take you, 30 minutes or more just to see what was going on here. So,
Wow.
A lot of it was really strategizing and following, the creative instincts and the documentary instincts of like, where do we turn next to find the story?
Yeah, well, and you talk about the strategies that you can put forth and how you're going to approach things, but in any project, there's going to be curveballs and things are going to change. What I'm sure that there are, tons of stories about things that you guys overcame or things that came out of left field that you had to pivot and change. I'd love to hear from you all about some of those things. Nadia, do you want to go first?
Sure. So let's see, there were tons of challenges constantly. I would say one thing, and like Ali mentioned before, there was no guarantee that we were going to get access to the Weeknd. And so, I think the whole time we were strategically trying to figure out, but also sensitively trying to figure out what was the right way to manage that relationship, because there was so much going on for him in that moment as well. The pressure of this performance and getting it right and all the little details was just, you can only imagine if you were in his shoes, how overwhelming that would be. And so it was just constantly, doing a little bit here and a little bit there to build these relationships, but also recognizing then that, Lamar was such a huge part of how he became who he is and that strategy. And I think for me, I still even get emotional when I think about that scene in the film when Lamar talks about what it felt like to hear Abel, sing and watch him at the Super Bowl. And to me, that was just so beautiful. So we just knew that we had to track that story really closely. But I'd love to talk about even, Freed, maybe you could tee up our actual day of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I will say this, which is, first, by way of setup, being in Tampa for this Super Bowl and being on the ground there was the first time, at least for me. I know other people had, been out shooting some things, but to be together in this very safe bubble, we were testing. It seemed like, every time you turned around, there was something being stuck up our nose. But it felt very safe. It felt very safe in the NFL bubble. It felt very safe in the halftime, in the Pepsi halftime show bubble. It felt very safe. And so there was an evening, I guess it was Friday night before the Super Bowl, that we were at the restaurant on our hotel rooftop, right? And I remember just looking around thinking, like, this is the first time in so long that we've sat around and some people were having drinks. it was just like that feeling of making something was, it was as close to that natural feeling of being on the road on set as I had felt in a very long time. And Serena Roma, who was one of the producers on the project and is one of my very close colleagues, left to take a phone call and then came back and pulled me aside and said, we just found out that we can have 2 people in at the Super Bowl total. Like, that's it. We had 25 credentialed people. We had a crew of, everybody had plans and strategies for what we were going to be shooting, 4 different cameras and, you know, the whole deal. And Serena says, they're only going to let 2 people in the building. And I looked at Serena and I said, there's nothing we can do about that today. Let's let this evening play itself out because this team has earned it. And then we'll update everybody in the morning. And we did, and we got right to work. And I'll never forget Ali Polly looking at me on that Zoom Saturday morning and her saying, like, we're here to support whatever we can do. I'm plugged in. And she said, literally, I will not leave this seat until the halftime show is done tomorrow. And every time we spoke for the next day, and really in the year since, it's like, are you still sitting in that seat? Because she promised, I will not move until the Super Bowl is over. But it was hard, and we were scrappy, and we had to change all of our plans. And Nadia and her producing partner, Lauren Chaffee, who is also a real hero of this project, the 2 of them, in the greatest way, just focused forward. It would have been so easy for Nadia and Lauren to say, well, I have nothing that I need, and all our plans are busted, and if you can't get me in, then I'm going home. Like, it could have been that. And instead it was the other thing, which is, okay, this is what we've run into. How do we solve for it? How do we, you know, if we run into a brick wall, how do we climb it? How do we work around it? And how do we burrow under it? And we did. I think the proof is in the final film. It's a testament to Nadia and her entire team.
But I will say, you know, the dominoes fall, right? We got the call and I didn't react like a lunatic. Like, what good is that going to do if the NFL, this was all because of COVID, by the way.
Right.
There was no vaccine. This was all about, there was no backup to the Weeknd. If he got sick, we were dead. What were we going to do? It was all about COVID. So when I got the call that they had to cut dramatically back, I had a choice to make. And this is where, you know, all the years and gray hair that I've earned is when you, like, you know, this is when the shoes were all wrong. This was when these are when I call everybody who worked on this, I call them a trained professional killer. This is like, you take a beat and you're like, okay, this is the work. This is now why we are the ones making this film. Because that in that moment, that's what separates a professional from a lunatic, right? And it's going to happen. I mean, it may not happen on that scale, but when you make a documentary film, you never know what's going to happen. You know, gunfire, someone got sick, you know, like whatever, right? The world is nuts. But this was particularly wild. You know, the good news is we laugh now, but everybody was like, what? Okay. And then because Nadia is a DP, we had options. Most people would just be like, oh my God, how are we going to get through this? But we had options. She can shoot she can shoot. Do we want her to shoot? Like right? I mean, we
rigged. Remember, we rigged.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, okay, we can get in there and we can rig that camera, and we can get in there and we can rig that camera, and you know, you can run stuff into me, you know, at
Get
the
all the
gate.
GoPros.
Yeah, I gotta say that it's in these moments that low budget independent documentary filmmaking roots are the things that save you. You know, we pre-loved everyone before they had to leave the stadium. Our sound guy pre-loved everyone, dropped his bag and hit record, and that was it. So all our audio was being recorded with no one monitoring it. which is insane.
Insane.
Wow.
And then we had 2 cameras. And so I took a camera, and fortunately I know how to shoot. So I knew that I knew what to get. I knew where our stories were. I knew everyone's story. I knew every character. I had relationships with every single one of them. And so that gave me everything that I needed. And then we knew that our money shot was Abel on that golf cart. And I was like, if we can do that, and then I can be in that ship, that's the end of our movie. So let's just focus all of our energy on those things. And that's all that matters. We can't think about what we don't have right now. We got to think about what we do have.
Mhm.
And, you know, you put faith in the documentary gods, as we say, and then you just go off. And we were very lucky that,
But also the NFL trusted us. Like we had, we knew, we asked for that golf cart. And they trusted that we were not asking because, Nadia's feet hurt. It's like when we asked for something, they trusted that we were asking for a critical point in the narrative, right? And then the flip of it is when we had to work with them on a dramatic COVID protocol shift, we were their partner too. They were our partner. We were their partner, right? Same thing with Rock Nation. Like, we all just really respected each other and knew there were a lot of things we really couldn't control, but what we could control is how we all work together. That's what we could control.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really, it's been said before, it really all comes down to partnership and trust.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so we've got to wrap up, but Allie, I wanted to just ask you, you've been at this for a while and are really, one of the leaders of brand storytelling and brand funded film. And, because of you, Pepsi continues to innovate and, one up itself year after year. What kind of advice do you have for brands that are either entering the space or ones that are in it, but like stuck and they're not achieving this level of work? What do you think you could share with them to help them elevate their work?
Well, first, I would say, I'm only as good as my partners, right? So if my brand colleagues and CMOs and CEOs don't believe in what we're doing, I can scream up and down all day long and bring forward the best people, and they're not going to give me money or opportunities. So I do a lot of pre-work with the brands, and maybe that's really where people should start, is really helping the brand understand, why are we doing this? What does success look like? What is the role of the brand? What is the essence that we're trying to achieve? What's the goal? What is the real timeline, you guys? Most marketers are not accustomed to the calendar. This is my biggest source of pain. And you have to tell people honestly, this is how long it takes. And this is what distribution is really like. This is not a board with a script with a media buy. And so, we spend a lot of time talking people through, when you look at a rough cut, these are the 3 things we want you to look at. Don't tell me anything else. I don't want, I know, believe me, I know, trust me that I know the color is wrong, can't hear the people. I know. Look for these 3 things. Do you care about the characters? Do you understand the story? Is the essence of what we're trying to do out there, right? The other thing we do, which, is really credited to my boss, Lou Arbiter, is we create a lot of assets that the brand can really control so that they let us make the film, right? Lou calls it steak and sides. The steak is the doc, right? The sides are all the branded assets. So if the brand feels like they can populate the universe with sides that are branded, promotional, literal, not product shots, but branded, right? They kind of let us do our thing. Having said that, just because Pepsi is not in here, we talked a lot about what the brand stands for. And you have to really know your brand, right? And I was able to kind of translate all this brilliance marketing input that I hear and get, that I have learned how to interpret, to say things like energy and heightened experiences. Like Pepsi is not going to get behind, most likely, a really slow, sentimental story. Even though this story is touching and human, this film gives you goosebumps, right? And so you have to really know your brand. You have to really be able to help your brand people understand that you don't have to hit people over the head with product and messaging in order to be effective. The other thing is there's so many people doing this well. They're in the brand storytelling community. They're being celebrated. Procter, REI, Patagonia, HP. There are, Hawaiian Airlines, your magnificent film about the post office. I mean, there are so many people really doing this. And I think we all need to talk to each other and help each other out. And I feel like that's what branded storytelling has done, is really made it like we're not alone. And if anything, I think we can all raise, we're going to raise all ships, right?
Yep.
Because if we can do it, then a small brand out there can do it too. The risk for us, you guys, is probably much bigger than a small brand, right? So start small. We did a non-branded 13-minute film 7 years ago with David Dark that got into Tribeca in non-branded categories because it was beautiful. It was honest. It told a real story. Gatorade paid for it. There's no branding in it. So start with one short film and see how it goes, and let people know that like you're open for business. And then once you're open for business, the job becomes, will Nadia work with us again? That's how I measure my success. Will directors come back?
Well, and storytelling is storytelling, right? We all
Yeah.
have partners when we make something. And it's those foundational conversations of saying, what does success look like for all of our partners, whether that's a network. Sometimes it comes up with talent, right? We do projects with high profile talent. Certainly Nadia is experienced in that as well. Like, what does success look like? What are we all hoping for from this? And then we paint that target on the wall metaphorically and try to aim at it. And when we've missed the mark, at least we have all agreed upon what that target is before we've started. So we can agree, oh, it's a little bit off to the right, it's a little bit off to the left, but we've all agreed what it is. And so there's no, in the bottom of the ninth inning. So, I say it's like Columbo who comes in and says, oh, by the way, there is one more thing. And it's like, no, we know what success looks like. And we're gonna sort of try to be faithful to that. And what Ali says about the steak and the sides is really important, because I think we preach that as storytellers as well. Like, what do you want out of this story that we're creating? And then how are you activating against it? And when brands have the tools to activate against it through more traditional marketing channels that make everybody a little bit more comfortable along the way, like, oh, and we're also doing this, and we're using the film as a vehicle for this, and like all of those activations, I think, are part of what makes it feel successful at the end.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you all for your time today. It's been such a great conversation, and just congratulate you on the film. I mean, what a special film. It's such a treat. Thank you so much for creating it and sharing it with us. And I can't wait to see what's coming next from all you guys.
Thanks
so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.